Have you ever had a moment where you realize that you were being lied to? And not just lied to, but like purposely deceived. For me, that moment came when I started diving deeper into history. Now, I'll admit, I'm no historian, but the more layers that I pulled back, the more of the story that I realized was missing. And why is it that there's only one watered down version of the story that's being told? That's when everything changed for me. Because once I realized that what I was taught wasn't completely true, and sometimes an outright lie, I couldn't help but think, what else could be hidden? Yo, what's going on? It's your boy K-Mo. This channel is all about developing the mindset and self-mastery necessary to accomplish any goal. Today, I would like to share with you one of the biggest catalysts that helped me start thinking for myself and the personal growth strategies that helped me elevate out of debt into security and into a complete confidence in myself and my abilities. So let's get into it. So the turning point was after getting out of college, getting through college, getting a good job, and becoming financially stable, I was able to think a lot clearer. I wanted to know, how could I become financially free? Being black in America, learning about finance, and overcoming the financial struggle that I had just been through, it naturally takes you down a path, right, of how did this happen to begin with? Not to place blame, but to learn and to let other people know so that they can reach higher if they so choose. In school, we learned all about the surface level historic events, but somehow I still felt like I knew nothing at all. This prompted me to learn more about my history beyond slavery and the constant race discussions that we hear around us. This curiosity led me down numerous rabbit holes, but long story less long, I realized that I was told and accepted a version of the world that wasn't quite complete. And if this wasn't the full story, what else could be missing? To be honest, it took a while for me to get past the resentment I had. But as I learned more, I realized the experience that it gave me. It gave me the opportunity to see the world differently. It turned me into a seeker, putting those university, engineering, critical thinking skills to good use. So, where did I start? Mindset shift number one was to question everything. As a kid, my mom always told me to keep an open mind. And I'm so glad that that stayed with me in my subconscious, especially in a society where we're rewarded for our correctness, but not really rewarded when we acknowledge our incorrectness. Think about that. One of my favorite quotes is, "A wise man knows that he knows nothing at all." This always reminds me to take a look at everything with a set of fresh eyes, whether it's something that I've never done or something that I've done a million times. There is always something that I can learn from it. This is the reason why it's difficult for me to talk in absolutes. Miracles happen all the time, and we've been wrong more and more as a society as time progresses. So don't pretend to have all the answers. Give yourself permission to be curious, to listen more, to learn more, and to unlearn even more. If you want to grow, don't worry about being right. Just seek to improve your understanding. Mindset shift number two was to read. I was the type of kid that I didn't really care for reading growing up. I was a good reader, but getting me to sit down and pick up a book, that just wasn't happening. Then when I got to college, yeah, you can completely forget about it. It ruined reading for me. I didn't even want to look at another book. When I began studying the people most would consider successful, nearly all of them said that reading contributed to their success. I heard it enough to where I'm like, okay, I guess I got to give this thing a second try. And I'm so grateful that I did. And I wish I would have done it since I was a kid. who knows how far ahead I would have been. The two books that really turned me into a reader was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki and Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which is my all-time favorite. Reading can seem very daunting at first. Picking up a 200, 300 page book, reading it at a snail's pace, yeah, it can be disheartening. This was me at the beginning, but as with anything that you do, the more you do it, the faster and better you'll get. I went from reading a couple books a year to reading a book a month or a couple books a month, really just by sitting down, dedicating 20 to 30 minutes to reading every day. More importantly, it helps if you're interested in the topic of the book. I remember hearing a saying that if you want to hide something from somebody, put it in a book. Look, with books, you can download years and years of knowledge and experience are written in those pages from the author. Reading, it completely changed the way that I think. I comprehend familiar concepts differently now, and with each book, I feel like I'm living out a new perspective. Mindset shift number 3 is to use your time with purpose. If you're anything like me where you feel like you don't have enough time as it is, how can you carve out time for your personal growth? For things like reading, fitness, and spirituality, or things like education and hobbies. For me, I had to become more efficient. Eventually, as an adult, you do what you make time to do. There's many different ways that you can approach this, but I chose to just start with small steps. I started looking at things in my routine that I could replace or use that dreaded word multitask. First, I decided to write down my intentions. For reading, I wanted to do a minimum of 10, 15 minutes a day. See, the beautiful thing is once you get going, you tend to keep going. So that 10, 15 minutes would turn into 20 or 25, or let me finish this chapter. Eventually, this list of intentions became a guideline for a routine. For me, it was important to limit this to 2 or 3 things. Currently, for me, it's reading, meditation, and fitness. Once I develop the necessary habits to continue these, I'll add a few more things or I'll swap them out. It's important to note that this was in addition to my 9-to-5 job, my home, and my parental duties. Doing a little every day adds up, and it often prevents you from burning out. Remember, this is practice, and with anything that you practice, you'll get better and faster over time. You see the theme here? It pains me to say this as a musician, but another thing that gave me more time for learning was replacing music on my commute with listening to podcasts or listening to YouTube videos or listening to news radio. For safety reasons, of course, make sure that you get this stuff set up before you start driving so that you're not distracted. I utilize playlists so I don't have to interact with my devices quite as much. And I also use this strategy while doing household chores like washing the dishes, cutting the grass, or just cleaning up. I had to look at my life and see what was really value added. I began reducing my social media intake by replacing it with something more productive, whether it was learning, working on my business, working on side hustles, or just giving more attention to my family. Allow yourself a little grace here. It will take some getting used to, and you'll have to try different things to see what really works for you. You don't need to fill out every second, but just be intentional. The key here is you want to be aware of what you are choosing. And when you slip, just look for different ways to improve. Your future self will thank you for it. Mindset shift number 4 is be willing to look foolish. When we start something, we naturally want to be good at it right away, right? When we were kids, we accepted the challenge of improvement. When we finally accomplished something, we would be overcome with joy and pride. Whether it was learning to walk or riding a bike without training wheels or putting together your first puzzle or making your first basketball hoop, right? We never got stuck on looking foolish when we started. Otherwise, we would have never gotten better. As we grew, most of us became more self-conscious, concerned about what our peers thought. We started comparing ourselves to others, comparing our starting version to their final version, which sometimes was a lie anyway. Growth is awkward. You will look silly. You may ask some dumb questions, but the people who succeed the most, they don't let that stop them. They don't let their ego get in the way. I still ask for help. I still seek out advice, and I'm happy to say I'm no longer scared to look foolish. How would I ever do something new if that's what I was worried about? Most people, they let that fear hold them back. Please, please, don't be like most people. Mindset shift number 5 is spiritual connection. Look, I'm not here to tell you what to believe. In my case, my mother introduced me to many spiritual concepts when I was young. While beneficial, this did leave me with a lot of questions. Those profound questions that children ask, but without experience, it's really hard to put that into context that a child could understand. If you're lucky enough to have access to your 5 senses, it's very easy to fall into the trap of a purely visual, material experience, influenced by distraction and societal norms and a follower mentality. Eventually, without being conscious of it, we begin to use the external stimuli as validation for who we are. There will never be enough external proof to fulfill that sense of completeness and calmness and connection that we're naturally looking for, that connectedness. How do you fit in this amazing experience? That, my friend, is an answer that it can only be found within. No one can give you that. I promise you, if you embark on the journey, whether it's through religion or other spiritual practices, everything will begin to make sense, and at the same time, you'll realize how very little you actually know. Meditation, prayer, stillness, scriptures, they all provided me with different and unique experiences. Some pleasurable and some not so much, but I'd say that they've helped me grow the most out of everything I've mentioned. And they've helped me grow in mind and spirit. Of all the things I recommend to you today, this one, in my opinion, is the one that you will grow the most from. So, go within. Don't be afraid to look foolish. Use your time wisely. You'll grow into a version of yourself that you wouldn't even recognize. Matter of fact, even better, the version of yourself that you were meant to be. Thank you for sharing your time and attention here with me today. It really, really means the world. If you have a growth tip or strategy that, worked for you, please put that in the comment, and I'm sure myself or someone else could definitely benefit from it. I wish you well. I wish you continued growth and prosperity, and y'all know the vibes. Peace and love. Yeah.